wants more money.
Also,
And
I
if
do
there
love
is-
the people who blame MBS for Abu Dhabi, not realizing that John Todd was was the
Look,
president.
fans are dumb. Fans are dumb. There's no point to even.
That's a great thing to all the fans listening. Thanks a lot there, Sean. We've just lost all our subscribers. You people watching, you're all morons.
I mean, you'll just clip that out at the start.
No,
at the start of the video.
Put it at the start, yeah, maybe.
Fans
That's a
are
good idea.
dumb.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Blatantly Biased Racing Podcast, where this week we're going to talk about tier lists. Essentially, I've got a list of the way I think the drivers pair up from top tier to don't deserve an F1 seat. And
I'm basically here to tell Jason why he's wrong.
yes,
That's what
we're
I'm
going to
doing.
argue about this. We'll probably quickly touch on Alpine, which is, I'm fully supporting high-tech Alpine.
Only appropriately.
Yeah. We
For
like
inappropriate
them.
stuff, we have Flavio. Anyways,
So for like them, we'll be underpowered. Yeah. So how are you anyway, man?
I'm good. The breaks been a bit weird, honestly, because if we don't have Formula One, the thing is we've become so habitual. Having this almost a month-long break is weird. But at least I had a chance to watch MotoGP, which was fun. It's good. Maybe I'll actually force you to start following it next season. It's going to be a fun one.
I do need to watch it. I think what I'll do is, I was going to start watching it, but I think it's just too late in the season for me to kind of get into it properly. So
You could.
I'll do is
Still right now, I think there are 5 or 6 races left. There's 15 odd points between the top two, and it's intense.
interesting. Maybe what I'll do is get a MotoGP subscription. When's the next race?
This weekend.
Okay, maybe I'll get
in Japan.
okay. Maybe I'll get one.
That's probably your time, or is it? How?
No, I'd say it's probably it's
Okay,
probably
got
like
it.
so the Japanese Grand
12 hours.
Prix. Yeah, the Japanese Grand Prix is normally at like 2 a.m. for me, so I would imagine it's probably the same for MotoGP.
Yeah. Would
So
be the same.
I'm not doing that for the first race
Yeah,
because it'll just stop
probably
me
not.
from watching it again.
Exactly.
Before we get into the tier list then, so Alpine have confirmed that they are removing the engines for 2026. I think they're replacing the engines. I'm not sure if perhaps they're just going to not put an engine in and have one of their drivers push the car.
Results
It'll
won't
probably
change,
still be
right?
as fast. Yeah.
Or slow. It's just look, when the team came, I was very optimistic. It was I think 2016 or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Just the way the whole thing has unfolded, it's a bit sad but I think it's basically something which should be an alarm sign for a brand like Audi, which is also, to be honest, for now taking the sport in a very casual manner. They haven't made the kind of steps or moves that they should have. They wasted almost 2 years by now. This season is a waste. The last was a bust, and they only have 2025 to do even semi-meaningful job. So Audi, be careful, because teams enter Formula One, the brands, these automotive huge brands, they enter Formula One to make a name for themselves.
Yeah.
The way Alpine has left or Renault has left, I think it should be a warning sign for Audi to not take things too casually.
Yeah, and I think the question is going to be as well, like, so they're looking at Mercedes engines. It's quite obvious to me that this is very much a prep for a sale, right? For at least half of the team. Like I've noticed they've started sprinkling, like turning the whole Enstone facility into a hyper-tech Alpine, which to me sounds eerily similar to high-tech Alpine, which
God.
team principal Oliver Oakes is the lead of, and Mazepin's and various people were invested in. And high-tech, for anyone who doesn't know, actually put an offer in to start an F1 team, an application in at the same time as Andretti. They didn't make it to the second phase that Andretti did, but that sounds eerily similar to me to high-tech Alpine, and I wonder if they're trying it on a bit, you know.
I think for me the biggest question has to be what's the aspiration of the entire squad? Is it to become a world champion, or is it to be a midfield? Is it to be a Haas, or is it to be a Mercedes? That's what it comes down to. Because look, aspirations drive whatever your willing to do, if you're just there to exist, if high tech is a brand that wants to be the next Saber or
Yeah.
something like that, which a Jordan in the past days, where it wants to be there just to be a part of the whole thing,
Yeah.
then that's, I'd say it's a step back for Formula One, going from an Alpine, which was, or a Renault, which was supposed to maybe someday fight for wins. Never happened. No, at least they won a race. But from there, turning into a team that's probably going to be a midfield to a back marker, it's a fall,
Yeah.
significant one as well.
Yeah. I just can't see them being on the grid by 2030. Like, I think this is I can see the team being on the grid, but not owned by the Renault facility. I think they are more and more and more thinking, let's just turn this, like, sell most of it, and we can keep part of it, like even 25% or whatever, as a branding exercise, because it would essentially cost them nothing then to just have the Alpine name in the sport, sell some cars, have no
I
real
seriously
downside
doubt
to
that
it.
would happen. That
No.
if high tech is coming in, I doubt they'd let them have the naming rights. Not
Well,
gonna
I
happen.
think in the short term, it would mean they would only have to pay for half the team. So it'd be quite a good deal, especially
Yeah,
if they
but
can
the
pay for half the
naming
team and get a.
everything right for a
Yeah, but
brand
if
like,
it's high tech Alpine, just having
sounds
the thing
worse.
there,
Honestly,
it
it's
does. It sounds
basically the worst
terrible.
of both worlds.
Yeah, it's awful, but I could see it happen. But anyway,
Yeah,
yeah, I think they're going to be one of the least impressive teams in 2026. But then if Flavio's running it, I mean, it could end up
I
being
don't. I
world
think Flavio's
champions.
just there to help sell the team. That's all.
Yeah, well, hopefully Flavio turns it around and it becomes world champions in 2026. I wouldn't, and then get disqualified 6 months later when we found out that he's cheated by doing something.
Yeah.
That would be very Flavio.
Then he can retire. They're basically
Yeah.
third time's a charm.
So we'll start on this list then, will we?
Yeah.
And let's see people
Go for
shout
it.
and disagree, because there's going to be ones in each category that people will argue about. So let us know in the comments as we go through this. And while you're down there, subscribe, whether you think we're right or wrong, or who you agree with, or just your
While
list.
you're down there, subscribe.
Yeah.
Out of context, that particular can be.
So do you want to start from worst to best or from best to worst?
Let's go from worst to best.
Worst to best. Okay. So
Yeah.
the list starts. and
Let's
this
start
is
from Lance Stroll.
Yes, basically. This is a long list of different ones. I think there's 6 categories I've got them in, where people normally put letters.
They are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah.
Yeah.
You've been quite methodical in that sense, man.
Yes.
Impressive.
Yeah. So it starts with doesn't deserve an F1 seat is
Yeah.
where we're kicking off, right? And
I
in
think
my
we agree.
list, yeah, unfortunately, one of these has already proven that he should be on this list. So I need to kind of think now where to put one of them. But initially, when I wrote this list about a month or so ago, it was Stroll, Sargeant, and Zhou. And I kind of stand by all of them. Sargeant obviously is gone. He's not there anymore. So I think Sargeant needed to go. I don't know if I would put Colapinto into that list at all. He deserves a seat in F1.
Yeah.
The problem is I might leave Colapinto out, or I'll consider where to put him as we go through it, because he's only been in 3 races. So, I mean, if we go by just Monza, you'd probably say Nick De Vries deserved a seat in F1. But looking back,
No,
he would very much be in that doesn't deserve a seat.
I think Nick De Vries, his entire career has been based on having Nicolas Latifi in the other car and just making him look like a smartass.
Yeah.
And that's his
So-
entire career.
So to go through that, just quickly to run through them. Sargeant, obviously, that's, I think even Williams agree he doesn't deserve a seat in F1, obviously. Stroll on his good days can be good, but he is not good enough to keep the seat he's in, and I don't think he's good enough to keep a seat full stop. And the only reason, he's been so up and down over the years, where he's had a couple of glimpses of being good, but generally not great. That any other driver in his position would have had their 2 or 3 seasons in F1, would have enjoyed it, and would have been gone. Latifi, for example, would have eventually just gone. The money dries up and they're out.
To do the NBA.
Yeah, Joe is probably the closest to deserving a seat on this, because he hasn't been awful, but does he deserve to keep a seat in F1? No, not in my opinion. He hasn't done enough, So
Out
Joe
of
is
Joe
probably
and
the closest
Lance,
to them.
who do you think will be the worst driver?
If Joe had a proper car, I think Joe would outperform Stroll, and that's probably a ridiculous statement. But Joe has been he's been decent. Like, I mean, he hasn't been terrible, but
He's teamed up with Valtteri. He's 18-1
yeah
or 17-1, something like that this season, which
yeah
is
in
horrible.
qualifying, right, or in both.
Yeah. In
It's in
races, it's
qualifying.
something like it's a bit closer, but not that much.
Yeah, but you
The
need to
worry
remember as
is,
well, Bottas beat Hamilton a third of the time in qualifying.
yeah, but he's washed now. So
No, but this was in the
that's not
peak.
something. Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Uh, but again, Joe's Formula 2, Formula 3 career, even that didn't really stand out as much. The reason why he got the seat was the money he brought in. Otherwise, he
yeah,
should not have been in Formula 1 anyways.
yeah,
So, again, the Chinese viewers, if we have any, they won't be happy with whatever we are saying here. But
yeah.
that's just the fact.
It's just the
He should not be
Joe.
on. Mick Schumacher deserves to be on the Formula 1 grid if I compare him to a Joe or a Lance.
Yes, yeah. The
That
problem with
should tell you the level.
I think if Joe was in the sport in like 2015, 2016, or there's some years where I think Joe would have kind
Yeah,
of fit in. I think right
yeah,
now even Lance Stroll would seem competitive compared to some drivers in those years. Like, I
yeah.
think the thing is, we've just got such a good grid right now, and so many rookies that are just brilliant waiting to come up, that these guys just
There
don't
are three
deserve a
of
seat
them next
anymore.
season. Four of
Yeah.
them next season.
Yes. And
Five.
there's
Sorry.
more
Fuck,
around.
there are five.
Yeah, and there's still more around that are really, really good that deserve a shot here. Like, I mean, even ones that have gone to other sports who probably should have come up when Joe was sitting there, for example.
Yeah.
So I think that's the thing, is
That's the sad
it's a
part,
good
honestly.
sign. It's a good
Yeah.
sign for Formula One, though, that most, like, when I say doesn't deserve a seat, this list could have been longer a lot of years.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
that's the other side of it. Yeah,
the thing is, there are two paid drivers in Formula 1, and we've basically kept both of them here.
yeah.
And it's fair enough. I mean, this was the
So
easier choice.
is there anyone else you'd put in that doesn't deserve to be an
No, no,
F1
no, no,
category?
no, no.
No.
Everyone else. Uh, K-Mag, I won't put here because of the vibes.
Yeah.
An F1 grid needs a K-Mag, honestly.
You know what? The thing is, K-Mag, Bottas, Perez, even Ricardo, these guys, I've kept them in a different category
Wait,
for one reason,
Daniel,
which is,
Daniel Ricciardo deserves to be here.
yes, and I have them in this category because I think they still deserve to be in F1. They're not operating at their highest level. We haven't seen the best of them. Realistically, would I prefer to have some like young rookie in who's coming up? Probably in most cases, but you couldn't say don't deserve to be in F1. They've done enough. Like K-Mag has had some brilliant years as well. I think let him
Even,
finish out his
yeah,
career.
even I think the race in Monza was brilliant. I
Yeah,
think he scored a point, and I think it
K-Mag's
was
really good
that
on his
very
good
race he
days.
also got banned, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah. So let me move on to the next category, which
Yeah.
is good on their best days. Oh, we're gonna disagree on this one. Good on
Good
their
on the
best
better,
days.
right?
Good
But
on their better
not, but
days, sorry, but
yeah.
too many off weekends is what it's called, right? Do you want to know who I have in here, or do you want to
I
go
know,
in?
I know, I know who you
Yeah, well, K-Mag and Ocon are my two in there
Wow.
because both of them
No,
can be
the list
very, very good
includes
drivers.
just these two.
That's my list of those two. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
So this is good on their better days, but too many off weekends. What I mean by that is they can be a very capable set of hands, but they're very inconsistent. Like Ocon seasons normally split into 2 or 3, which is where he has a couple of really great weekends. He has lots of off weekends and then a few good weekends. And K-Mag is the guy who, interesting, he's replacing is a very, very similar Ocon in my opinion. Because Ocon, like look at Monaco last year, was it? When he finished on the podium. Like Ocon
Yeah.
has some brilliant performances. But then for a lot of the season, it's kind of like, I don't even notice where he is. And I know part of that's down to his machinery, but I feel like there's other drivers in shit machinery that I kind of constantly, I'm like, oh, they're doing a really good job. Whereas Ocon, it's like one weekend, I'm like, wow, that was brilliant. And another weekend, it's like, I didn't even notice Ocon this weekend. Or I do notice him, which is even worse because I'm going, that was shit. What was he doing there? So those two drivers I would put in, that's why I made it like a separate category away from from just midfielders, say.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know you like Ocon, and I'm wearing my Alpine hat in a sign of peace.
Yeah. Okay, so K-Mag, I think I agree with you. Good on their better days. And I think K-Mag's peaks are brilliant. Some days when he nails everything, he can be unstoppable.
Yeah.
Now coming to Ocon, I disagree completely. I think 2019, 2020, the 2020 was the COVID season, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so 2020 was the season where I think Ocon had his worst season in F1. Daniel Ricciardo dominated him pretty much.
Ricardo was brilliant then, yeah.
Yeah, and I think the last season we saw vintage Ricciardo. Anyways, we'll get to him. What I think I've seen from Ocon is he's more of the ilk where I put a Nico Rosberg, where they tend to have a very good peak, but it's not as high as which a Max Verstappen will continuously perform at. So there
Yeah.
will be days where an Ocon will pull off something as similar to what he did in Monaco last season, but he will reaching that level is not easy for him, which was not easy for Rosberg as well a lot of times when he was
Yeah.
paired with Lewis.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think he's very consistent. I mean, I rate these drivers on after every weekend, and I can see the charts, and I can see how consistent he is. His main problem is he's not an Alonso. He's not a
Yeah.
Verstappen. He's not
Yeah.
a who else? A Lewis, Lando, etc. He's not on that level in terms of talent. He's just below that. That's where I tend to put him. And in the last 3 years, I've been doing the whole ratings thing, and I've seen this. I have data to back it up.
Yeah,
So
but he
fuck you.
crashed with Perez too much, so he's in a bad category.
Perez crashed with him.
You know, I'm a Perez fanboy, so this is. I knew we
Yeah.
were going to disagree on this one. Is there anyone
Yeah.
else you'd put in that category?
Yeah, so
are you
I
going to put
won't
Perez
put,
in just to spite me now, aren't you? I'm just,
No. Honestly, I don't think Checo during his Red Bull run is probably the right indicator of where I would ideally put him.
This is interesting because I tried to rate these on this
Current
season
form.
and last season. However, there is a situation where there's a couple of drivers that I've kind of put in different categories because I know that if in a different context they would be in that category, if that makes sense. Even by their current driving, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. So basically, what
but
I'm
yeah,
saying,
we'll get to that.
something similar on the similar lines, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think good on their better days, but too many off weekends. I think K-Mag deserves to be here. I think I'll also put Valtteri Bottas.
Yeah. It's
For
not
me,
a
the
bad one.
worry is, I've not. Again, maybe it might be due to the fact that the car sucks this much. Sauber
He's
is
driving a
poor.
washing machine. Yeah.
Yeah, he's basically driving that, and not a fast one, which is also worrying.
Most washing machines aren't fast, to be fair.
Yeah. Fair point. I think there have been a couple. There have been a couple of
You and your
weekends where
crazy
Bottas
Indian washing
started-
machines.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about a good reply. Nothing came up.
I
haven't
just
had my
immediately pictured some guy in I'm trying to
You
think
could
in
have
downtown
pictured Valtteri being in a
downtown
washing machine. I mean,
Calcutta on a washing machine with an engine. Yeah.
yeah.
And a wardrobe holding up behind him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Yeah.
the problem for me has been he can be strong, and I think I'll slightly extrapolate this to his Mercedes stint as well, where there were times when Bottas on form, on performance, he beat Lewis, which
Yeah.
is not easy.
Yeah.
But there were far too many weekends where you could say that, what are you even doing? Lewis
Yeah.
at 80% beat Bottas more often than not. And even he worked it out that, okay, fine, he'll have this weekend, let him. But over the season and over a race weekend, I will end up having the advantage over him. And that tended to happen a lot.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's why I think I'll put Bottas here. Is there someone else that fits the bill? No, I don't think so.
I will say I haven't got Perez in this category, but if we were just judging, like if I was just judging it in a complete silo of this season, he would be in this category. absolutely in this
No, he
category.
would be the one who doesn't deserve,
Probably
deserve
doesn't
Formula
deserve. Yeah. That's true. That's true.
Yeah,
It'd probably
but
be
it's
even worse.
unfair on Checo because we've seen him do very well.
I think the thing
He's a
is as
safe
well,
pair
like,
of hands.
so I've got him in the next category. So I'll jump on to the next category,
Yeah.
right? Which is capable pair of non-crashy, and then I have in brackets usually hands, which is basically a list of like who are the solid midfield drivers right now. And in this list, I've got Bottas, Perez, Ricciardo, Tsunoda, and Gasly.
You still
Now-
have Ricciardo here. He's
Remember, I wrote this list before he was kicked out, but
Yeah.
I
I mean,
will
just-
also add into this. I will add into this for right now because we don't have anything to go on. I'm probably going to put Colapinto and Lawson in here, but I will just say, like a couple of other drivers in the list,
Yeah.
they will probably move up this list depending on how they go because Colapinto and Lawson both have potential to be better than this. It just depends on. We don't know yet, basically.
I
in
don't
Formula
even
One.
know how good Colapinto is because every weekend he surprises me. That's the beauty of.
So
That's
Colapinto
the
could
beauty
end
of
up
being
being.
a Colapinto fan. Expect nothing and.
Put it this way, though,
you're
I
rewarded
think
with a
it's.
lot.
I think it's impressive that after 3 races, I would put Colapinto in as a solid midfielder already. So I think by the time he's done a full season at some point, he could very well be up that list, But I just don't have much to go on.
Exciting. I think for these guys, we might have to create a completely differently category, which is exciting.
Exciting.
Him,
Yeah.
Antonelli, Behrman, Lawson, I'm not that high on, but let's see. And then I think Jack Doon is a bit of a question mark because
We should really do this. We should do this at the end of every season or something like rate
Yeah.
the season
Would
of
be fun.
drivers. Yeah.
Yeah.
See where we
That'll
think
be
they
fun.
stack up. Just to explain mine before you put yours through, Bottas and Perez, I think have just been solid midfield drivers. That
Have you not seen the number of crashes Checo has done this season?
Yes, I did say
million.
4.5 million. It's 4.5.
No, it's 5.4 now.
Oh, Jesus.
After
So there's,
Baku,
what,
it's
6?
5.4 million.
No, are you sure? I thought it was 4.5. I think it was 5.4 altogether because Max has done 920,000.
Sorry, the entire team is 5.4. So probably
Yeah, but Checo is
4.5.
4.5 million of that, so it's
Yeah.
substantial. Look, I did say usually non-crashy hands. The point here is, I think Bottas, Ricciardo's a different trajectory, right? But Bottas and Perez, I think, are two brilliant midfield drivers who just, I think, don't cut it at the top teams. Both of them are just, they're not in that league. And unfortunately for Checo, more so than Bottas, Checo also went into a team with a car that has been, by all accounts, by everybody, so difficult to drive. We all agree Bottas, brilliant, or sorry, not Bottas, Albon, brilliant driver. Look how much he struggled in the Red Bull.
Yeah.
And I think some of that's going to carry over to the new regs as well. And I think Checo, the other thing we see as well is, especially look at Ricciardo and look at many drivers over history, when you go to that situation and it doesn't work out, it also knocks your confidence. Like Ricciardo's a completely different driver now compared to what he was after McLaren,
Yeah.
So the reason I say
almost
midfield
sad
is
to look at him.
yeah. So I think those 3 drivers would absolutely be solid midfielders. Like they would just be brilliant in that situation. I'm putting Tsunoda in there because there was a lot of hype around Tsunoda, and I think underlying pace, Tsunoda is quite a quick driver. But if we just look at his entire racecraft, like Lawson beat him 4-1, I think, last year in the races. Now I know Tsunoda got unlucky there with a couple of retirements. I think
I think that's a bit unfair because
Because
there
of
were 2 to 3 races where reliability issues were there.
yes.
For
But even
Yuki.
then, we say it was 2-1 if we remove those, right? Now Lawson was
I think
only
he
in the
beat him
car
in
straight away.
Japan and Singapore probably. Yeah,
I think so,
And
yeah. So, like, we don't really have... And then on top of that, a poor performing Ricciardo has, over the last 6 or 7 races, been on top of Tsunoda.
Yeah.
So, I think, as much as I was on the train of, I think Tsunoda deserves a shot here, and I still kind of think maybe he deserves a shot.
No,
I'm starting to think...
I've been very adamant about it. Cause
I'm starting to
that's the
understand where
problem.
Horner's coming from now. I think it's like, okay, right. He's not...
You're in the minority.
Yeah.
Because no one understands where actually
Where
Horner
Horner's
comes
coming from. Well, he's
Yeah.
always putting the finger out, And then I've put Gasly in there, which I think will upset some people. But if I'm honest, even Gasly, before he went to Alpine, like even Gasly in Red Bull alongside Max, even with all of the knowing where the car performance was, but watching Albon afterwards and so on,
Yeah.
I've never thought Gasly was like, I thought Gasly was always a solid driver, but never one that deserved a top team drive. For me, I just never thought so. Ricciardo is the odd one out on this list because if we were looking over the whole career, Ricciardo wouldn't be a solid midfield driver. But
He'll be a
on
top-tier
form of
driver.
the last 4 or 5 years, I think he
Yeah.
would do really well in the midfield. But I think his top days are done, and that's kind of obvious by what's happened over the course of the season.
By
So
the way,
yeah,
there might be a twist just for the just a little insider news. There might be a twist by the end of the season.
he could end up going to Red Bull.
Yeah.
Because it really depends on how well Lawson does, doesn't it?
Even then, even if
Yeah,
that
that
is
also,
not
yeah.
the case, even
The thing is, the last time Helmut Marko backed a driver, it didn't work out well. So maybe Horner just doesn't want to listen to him anymore. Nick DeVries, talking about you.
Yeah.
So who would you put
Okay,
in this
so
kind of solid midfielders?
yeah. So I think Bottas I'd actually I will put him maybe a level below.
Okay.
For me, Daniel is, if I'm being blunt, he should not be in Formula One. The kind of form that he's had. The reason behind it is we know what Daniel can do, and we are seeing what Daniel is doing right now. They are not the two same drivers,
No,
and
that's very
and
different.
there's this UFC fighter, Khabib Nurmagomedov. So there's one thing that he's a very he was a very big athlete in his time. He retired a few years back. So there's one thing he says, that every athlete, he has a peak, but after that peak goes, it does not come back. And I
Yeah.
think Daniel is at that phase. He's 35 now. It's very hard to bring back that kind of hunger and even get the body moving and doing the things after you've just fallen off the wagon. And he has. Once that happens, I don't really see the point. But what is he going to achieve in Formula One? He's already done a lot,
Yeah.
right?
If
He's
you
not
can't
getting a
get to
Red
the
Bull
top.
drive.
Yeah.
Unless he gets a Red Bull drive, I don't think there's any point for him to actually come back.
I think he's kind of decided that as well, hasn't he? He's just basically said, like, after winning, you can only float around fighting for points for so long. And Vettel
Yeah.
had the same opinion. It was like, look, it's, if you're not fighting at the top, it's over
beneath him,
eventually. Yeah.
basically.
So I would love if he got a shot at the Red Bull team,
Just to see what happens.
I
Just for that.
genuinely, I think if we were in this situation and Checo didn't have the big backing that he has financially,
Yeah.
I think it probably would have happened at the summer break. I think it would have just been done because there was no downside to, like, Checo was performing the way he is. There's no downside to chucking Ricciardo in because realistically, it can't get much
But
worse.
worse can happen. Yeah.
So yeah, which is crazy when I
Checo has
think about it
scored
because
59 points in 13 races.
yeah, and it's crazy when you think about it because, like, obviously Ricardo had much higher peaks, but Checo is not a bad driver. Like, he was
Yeah.
very, very good in the midfield. So yeah, insane.
Who were the
You
other
agree on
drivers
the
that
other
you
ones?
had?
I had Bottas, Perez. You've already said, yeah. Ricardo, Sonoda, and Gasly.
Yuki is perfect. I think you're right on that front. And this season was the one where I finally laid the whole thing to rest, that I don't really see a point in Yuki getting promoted. Yuki is
Yeah.
there because of the Honda thing. And I'll be blunt. I fear what will happen in 2026 because Yuki has a contract until 2025.
Yeah,
That contract ends. For 2026, he's not getting the Aston Martin seat.
no, there's no
Not
way.
a chance.
No.
And if that's the case, and Honda has zero clout to put him anywhere, he's out of the Formula One. I don't see him. I don't see any team taking him up, especially when there are 5 rookies coming in.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I don't think so either, unless he becomes like a cheap driver somewhere else. But there's Honda backing.
I mean, how cheap is he? He's already this.
Yeah.
It's very tough.
I think the thing with Tsunoda as well is I was very kind of hyped up about him, but I think the thing is, it's like a lot of drivers at the moment where people don't seem to understand that in Formula One you can only judge a driver against their
teammates.
teammate, and we're looking at a Daniel Ricciardo who is not operating anywhere near what we used to expect from Daniel Ricciardo, and Daniel Ricciardo is not over the course of the whole season, but we need to remember Tsunoda's been there 4 years. But if we look at it like the last 6, 7, kind of half the season, Daniel Ricciardo has been on his par or better than him And when you're in that situation, it's like, okay, well then Tsunoda's not as highly rated as we expected. And I think that's going to be the thing that everyone's kind of wondering about Albon, right? I think Albon's up there, but we need to see how he stacks up against, because his Colapinto's giving him a good run at the minute. And before that, he had Latifi and Sargeant, which we know are not great benchmarks.
But there's one thing, Latifi arguably did better against Russell.
Well, Latifi changed Formula One history.
He basically put her in a parallel universe.
He handed Max Verstappen a championship.
Anyways, there was Gasly.
Yes.
After, I think this is too low for Gasly.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'll ideally put him
I don't
a step
rate him
higher.
that highly. Yeah. I think it,
you don't. You're very particular about their top drivers, and
I don't
you
like
don't
the
really give a
French.
fuck about anyone else.
Look, I just don't like the French. That's as simple as that.
I don't mind the French.
Je ne sais quoi, but I don't like the French.
Sure. Anyways, I had no clue what that meant. So
it's like I don't know what. So that doesn't even make sense. But anyway, best of the rest is the next one. And I only have 2 drivers in here. And one of them, I really wish his career had gone better so that I could put him higher. But just based on where he's been, unfortunately, it's Hulkenberg and Albon are best of the rest for me. Now, there is another category before we get to the top tier in between this, because I feel like there's a slight...
There has to be
we'll get to... because everyone just goes kind of top tier, best of the rest. And I feel like there is kind of... There's drivers who are in between that. But anyway, we'll get to that.
We are realizing it this season, right? It's become a bit more prominent this season. And interesting on that front.
So Hulkenberg has been unfortunate. And I think people constantly use the whole, he never got a podium. But it's like, okay, well, do you realize what machinery he's been in? In his debut season, he got that beautiful pole at Brazil. His junior career before he came into Formula One.
He would have won the race in Brazil in 2012 if not for that bloody mistake. So, and I actually remember, there's a Facebook post from me still there from 2012 where I said that Nico Hulkenberg will be a future world champion.
Well, he might be an Audi, right? So I think, look, Hulkenberg, if Hulkenberg had the right machinery, he is all day long fighting with the top guys. I think the problem is as well, just given where his age is and given that he never got that shot at the top teams, I think the top tier drivers, would have the edge on him, obviously, at this point. But if we look at his season this season, even in that Haas, some of the qualifying performances, some of the performances have been brilliant last year as well. And Albon was brilliant, up against Max Verstappen as well. It's just that car was clearly difficult to drive. Everyone talked about it. He talked about it afterwards. And he has whitewashed his teammates so far. Obviously, he hasn't had great teammates. But, I think that his level is quite high. And I think that even up against Sainz, he's going to do a pretty good job. I think Sainz will have the edge. But if Sainz doesn't have the edge, that's probably more impressive on Albon's part than anything else.
That's more impressive on Colapinto's part.
Yes, there you go. But yeah, so you obviously know...
sitting next to James Walls.
So you obviously know what the next 2 categories are above that, but...
Okay, wait. First, let me talk about the best of the rest.
That's what I'm going to say. Who do you think is best of the rest?
Yeah, so I think Hulkenberg, I agree with you. Albon, I agree with you. I'll also add Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly in this list. And Carlos Sainz.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so how I define best of the rest is... These are the drivers who are going to give you good results, strong results, but their peaks, whenever they have that, they can jump right next to the top drivers. And nothing distinguishing them with those guys. I mean, all of these guys have had these moments. Carlos has them against Charles. Still he's able to do that. Gasly, I think his race this season in Zandvoort was brilliant. He finished P8 or P7 in an Alpine, which was brilliant.
Amazing.
Ocon also had a few. And who else? Hulkenberg is also something we've talked about. So these are those drivers who I'll say, if they have the right attitude, they are the perfect number 2 drivers in Formula 1.
Yes.
because what ideally and I think we'll see this evolution come up next in the next few years, because right now there are too many number one drivers in top teams,
Yeah.
and that never works out when there's a title on
Doesn't
the
work
line.
long term. Yeah. It works
Precisely. And
short
I
term or when you
Yeah,
don't have the car. As soon as you have a car to challenge, it doesn't work anymore,
yeah, McLaren
basically.
will be in trouble because of that, Mercedes as
Yeah.
well, and a lot of other teams. And that's why I think this particular bracket, one of these drivers is going to get that nod. And
Okay.
who it's going to be, it's still speculative.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, this is that particular list. Now you can go with the next one. By the way,
Okay.
anything different you have
So
in
what
mind?
was your list there? Best of the rest? Just to see if I can argue with you for a minute.
Nico, Carlos, Albon, the two French guys, and yeah, that's
Okay. Well, you're wrong on Ocon and Gasly, and you're wrong on Sainz, but all right, fair enough. Um, I'll go to the next one, and this will explain why I think you're wrong on Sainz.
yeah,
And this will actually cause people to be very annoyed at me as well, because there's one driver in here, but I will qualify it. Just off being top tier. So this for me is like literally just off. Like basically,
Lewis
they
Hamilton.
are they are top tier on their best days. I would say
Yeah,
in most cases they can be top tier on a lot of days, not but not all the time. This is Sainz and Piastri, right? Now Sainz, I don't think I
yeah.
need to qualify. Piastri, I'm just going to qualify for one reason, which is at this point. I would say by the time we're kind of midway through the 2025 season or even before then, he could very well be in that top tier because we've seen the glimpses of it. We've seen a lot of drives over the season where he's approaching that very, very rapidly. However,
Yeah.
there's been some inconsistencies. He's had to get on top of tires. There's been situations where, for example, like if we look at, everyone criticizes Norris this season, but if we look at Piastri's drives, in the two races where Norris has absolutely, utterly dominated the race, right? So that's Zandvoort and Singapore. Piastri hasn't been second. So you got to ask questions then of like, well, if everyone's saying, as everyone rightly is saying, like that McLaren was the fastest by some margin, why is he fighting for P4 or P3? Like, you know what
And
I
why
mean?
is he
So
40 seconds behind?
yes. So the thing is, I just think he's still got some experience to build, some tire management to build, and to get like his qualifying is 15-3, I think, against Norris.
Yeah.
So
The races is 13-5 or something on
yeah.
those lines.
So look, if you point it out in any other way, right? Put it this way: people who those similar qualifying and race head to heads we have between Russell and Hamilton, and people say Russell is good. We have we have big swings
Good, but
like
not
that.
great.
Yes, exactly. So you can't turn around and say, well, Piastri's way better than Norris when those are the head to heads.
Yeah.
So I will just qualify it by saying I have no doubt that if we came back to this, even 6 races into 2025, I'm probably putting Piastri in top tier because I'm seeing him kind of get there. There's just
Yeah.
it's just like he has a brilliant weekend and then he has a weekend where it's kind of mediocre. And I think that Norris, while Norris has his off days and his mistakes, he has been a lot more consistent still, which I think is why I have him in,
I
as you
think
can
there's
imagine, in
this
the next
common
tier.
notion in motorsports. You can make a fast driver make less mistakes, but you can't make a slow driver fast.
Yes. Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's what it comes down to.
And Piastri is definitely a fast driver.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
For sure.
but this is his second season. So I think people will probably argue he should be top tier, and I'm like, yes, he will be top tier. He's just not right now. There, because the top tier bracket is guys who could compete for a championship. And I know I'll annoy people because they've probably already guessed Norris is in my top tier list, but we'll get to that. But yeah, so who do you have
I
just off
fucking
top
hate
tier?
the
Because
fact that I actually agree with you on this because I I think I agree with you entirely. And there is one, and I think I've touched on it even in the past as well. There's one clear red flag that I have of Oscar, and that is actually there are two of them. One of them is the fact that when Max Verstappen entered the sport, there were these weekends where it doesn't matter who his teammate was, he was
yeah,
not going to lose.
yeah,
And he was going to smash them with his performance, irrespective of who the teammate is. Lewis had the same thing, Alonso had the same thing, Vettel Leclerc, George as well has done it to Lewis quite a few times. I'm yet to see Oscar put together one weekend where I can definitively say that he was the faster driver than Lando and he smashed him.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
it's almost 2 years.
even if we look at Baku, right? Like Lando started in P15 and came through the field. Now P4 he was obviously helped with, but he came through to P6, right, ahead of Max Verstappen, and he was fairly close to like the back of that pack as well by the end of it, coming from P15. So
Yeah.
you've got to ask yourself, like, as much as the performance by Oscar
And
was
in qualifying,
brilliant,
Lando was ahead by
yeah.
the
So
time whatever lap they did.
if Lando started in P1, P2, P3 there, is he kind of fighting through the pack, or is he leading that race? And I don't know. Like, I mean, I know people don't like Lando for a variety of reasons, but when Lando's out and out pace is clearly there, look at Hungary, Zandvoort, and Singapore, right? If you're going to say that the car is just a rocket ship at those tracks, then you have to question Oscar. It can't be both. Like, it cannot be both. And I think the simple fact is just Norris is currently still the better driver. Do I think Oscar could overtake him at some point? Sure. The potential is there. But at the moment, he's just not quite top tier.
Yeah.
He will be, I think. I have no doubt that he will be next year. Just right now.
And you know what I
he's
worry
not.
about when it comes to something like this? As I said, you can make a fast driver make less mistakes. But does Oscar has the intangibles in terms of temperament, grit, determination, and knowing what to do in pressure situations?
Yes.
Does he have the performance?
I think he does, but
I'm yet to see him. And my only question is, and maybe he might do it in the future because again he's brilliant. I mean, there for just to clarify, whatever is done in approximately 2 seasons is,
yeah,
it's amazing. It's very
incredible.
very good.
Yeah.
But I'm yet to see him outperform Lando Norris in terms of pure performance in the car. And that is just one.
You know I rate Norris quite highly, and I agree with you. The only thing I will say is I think the reason I give Oscar a lot of benefit of doubt is because I see those peaks, and also I know how difficult Formula One right now is very, very difficult acclimatizing for young drivers, especially.
Didn't take much time for Franco Colapinto or Oli
No, which is why he's so impressive. But then again, if you look at like Piastri as well, it's not
Oscar
like he's
has a higher ceiling than an Ollie Bearman. Again, Brits might get angry about it, but
yeah.
Ollie is good. He's a raw talent, but I think Oscar has a higher ceiling, and even compared to Colapinto,
Yeah.
there's something, and I don't know what that is, but I've seen Charles do it. I've seen George do it. I've seen Lando do that. I've seen all the top drivers do it. That there is a weekend where you can see, okay, the performance is there. He smashed his teammate just because of performance.
Annoyingly for most people, probably Sochi is probably one of those for Norris where it was just so unfortunate what happened. But like
even then, I mean,
he gets shouted at, and you're like, he was driving the third fastest car that weekend. Like, let's not underestimate.
And people don't even know the fact that he was driving the third fastest car, and it was not because of penalties and everything. It was because Lewis fucked up in qualifying and crashed into the pit lane or something.
Yeah, he crashed in the pit lane. Yeah. So Norris has had some brilliant drives. Like, absolutely, you know.
And that's again coming back to Oscar.
We'll get to that though.
Yeah. Coming back to Oscar, I just want to see one weekend where he outperforms Lando Norris in terms of just pure car performance, that he's faster. I just want to see that. One weekend where he's 2 to 3 tenths quicker than Lando. I think maybe Monaco we can say, where that was the case. But
Monaco and Monza is probably the closest examples, right? The only thing about Monza is, I know this sounds like an excuse, but one, the dirty air, and two, I think it was so obvious it was a Norris that was upset as soon as that happened.
Yeah.
Like, clearly something had kind of gone wrong. Yes. And look, you know, to be in the top tier, these drivers do need to essentially be robots, but I think that's like Lando is normally pretty consistent in not being rattled, but being hard on himself. And people take that as a weakness, but I don't know if I treat it that way. You know, I think it's probably good.
Look, to each his own, right? Wait, Carlos is left, by the way. You added Carlos in this.
I have Sainz in that section.
Yeah,
because
which is
I think
pathetic. I
Sainz
don't really
is.
see the point. Why the fuck would you add someone like him?
Because I think the difference is, I think Sainz is in that category. Here's the differences. I think Sainz is in that category. I think Piastri is in that category for now.
For the
You know
for
what I
the
mean?
time being.
Yes. So I think the thing is with Sainz, I think he's just off top tier, but this is as good as Sainz gets. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think it gets better.
Yeah.
But I just think Sainz, like, if we look at Sainz up against some of the teammates, if we look at like the car, you know,
Yeah. Okay. Which
he's been
teammates, by
brilliant.
the way? Let's
Against-
just go through the teammates.
he's been impressive
Let's
against
just
Charles
go
Leclerc.
through the teammates.
Charles Leclerc, Lando Norris, Max Verstappen.
There's one in between.
Fuck, who
Nico
have I
Hulkenberg.
completely? Oh, of course. What a
And he
beautiful,
lost to
beautiful
him.
man. Yeah, but Hulkenberg is above top tier if he's in the right car.
That's what I'm saying.
That's like saying, you know, a child beating an adult. That's impossible. It's not going to happen. He might be able to beat Verstappen, but he's not going to beat Hulkenberg because Hulkenberg would beat Verstappen. I think we all know that. It's fact.
We should. Yeah.
It's
I
fact
think
after
that should
fact.
be. Yeah. I think that should
I
be
think
the
if
title.
Hulkenberg had have been the leader of the Nazi party, we would all be speaking German right
Oh
now.
God. We haven't done that in a while, haven't we? No talk about Max Mosley's orgies and stuff.
No. We need to bring it back.
Bring that back. I think that's why the traffic dropped.
Yeah. So maybe people were like, these guys aren't being offensive enough anymore.
Yeah.
We need more
I think
Holocaust
actually, Sai had that. He said, "You're not. It's you're neither being blatant, not being biased. It's very mellowed down." I said, "Okay,
I think what's happened
we'll
is
notch
it's
it up.
we've got a good season now, so we've started being boring because we've actually
Yeah.
got things to talk about. Whereas before we had
Precisely.
to just be bastards.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Whereas now it's interesting. So you wouldn't put Sainz in that list. You put him in the list underneath. Right?
Carlos, Gasly, Ocon, maybe
Best of the
Hulkenberg,
rest you put,
and Albon. All of them in the same car. I think the result varies. It's 9 to 9.5. That's how much variance I see. I don't see him being.
Ocon and Gasly,
Upper
no,
tier.
but the rest of them, I agree.
Well, both are race winners.
Um,
In midfield cars.
Yes, that's true. But you know, on crazy days. Right. Top tier talents are we going to then? Yeah. So the top tier.
Yeah. I think
This is the part I
very...
think that's going to upset people.
You think so? I mean,
Yeah, because
people would have been
there's three
upset
drivers
if we
here
put
that-
Lewis in a tier below this.
Yeah.
I should
Well,
have
I was
done
going
that.
to
Why
put.
did I not do that?
I was going to put Lewis in. It doesn't deserve a drive anymore. But anyway.
No, he deserves. He brings
No,
the
I'm
traffic.
joking. I'm joking.
Just for traffic and vibes keeping.
Right. So the top tier
Okay, wait.
talents.
Wait. Let's talk about Lewis first. Then in that case, in the top tier, I'll
Are you
just
putting
get one
Lewis
thing very
just
clear.
off top tier?
No. He's at the bottom of the top tier. So he's
Oh Jesus.
okay. The reason why I'm saying this is, in all seriousness, this season, Lewis is not one of the top 10 drivers in Formula One. Terms of performance, he's not. I can rattle off names. I have it here anyways. Here, I'll just tell you who are ahead of him.
So you're putting him just off top tier then?
He's in 12th right now. Who is ahead? It's Max at the top, then Lando, Leclerc, George is P4, Hulkenberg is P5, Oscar P6, Carlos P7. Okay, maybe Franco Colapinto is in if you remove him. We have Alonso, Ocon, Albon, and Lewis.
Look, I can't have any list where you have Ocon ahead of Lewis Hamilton. So fuck off. Just
He's
stop.
what? He's 15-3.
He's
right?
washed, right? He's washed. Okay.
Yeah.
We're just...
That's what I'm saying.
No, is it 15-3 in
Yeah.
qualifying? I don't think so.
Yeah, it is.
It can't be, is it?
I just did an article yesterday or the day before on this.
If that's
It's
true,
15-3.
then okay, hold on. Let me just pull these up here, because this is hilarious. Then that you have people who literally are saying Norris is
Sorry,
terrible,
it's
and
13. I'm so sorry. It's 13-5. It's 13-5. It's not
Okay.
15-3.
yeah.
15-3
So-
is Lando.
Yes. So this is always the hilarious one for me, that it's like Lewis is absolutely stunning this season and destroying George because he's a few
No.
points ahead.
That's not even the narrative this season. It's
Because he's a few points
sabotage,
but because he's a
unlucky.
few points ahead. But my point is, the same people will be telling you that Norris is crap and that Piastri is way better, and you're like, well, the heads to head are completely proving you wrong here in both circumstances.
Yeah.
Okay. Will I go with the top tier that I have then?
Yeah.
Okay, look, top tier, I think the obvious ones, well, apart from you, are, to everyone except you, the obvious ones are Hamilton, Verstappen, Alonso, right? They're obviously top three drivers on, in there.
No.
And then you've got the
No.
other three
No.
that
No.
don't.
No. 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 Right now, top three drivers are
No,
Max.
I just mean if you were making a tier list, they've got to
Obvious
be in that
cases.
obvious ones because they're multiple world champions.
Yeah.
And they're still driving, in my mind, Verstappen's obviously driving at a very high level. He's leading the championship. Alonso,
He's alien right now. I mean,
yes,
he's just different.
ridiculous. Alonso has been up and down, but generally, I think it's just the car. He's been driving very well.
I'm telling you, he switched off mid-season when the car just kept cheating itself.
Yeah, and you'll have a lot of Hamilton fans going, "Well, he shouldn't be." Yeah,
yeah. As soon as the new news came, and he's just and that was always going.
You'll
to
have
happen.
a lot of Hamilton fans that will say, "Well, he shouldn't be switching off." And my argument to that is, then why does Hamilton switch off at the start of every season? So those three, Hamilton, Alonso, and Verstappen, they are in the top tier. They've earned their place there. And I think until Hamilton is running P18 on intermediate tyres in the dry next year in Ferrari, he will stay in that top tier.
Oh,
the three
God.
that people will argue with one way or the other that I've put in the top tier are Leclerc, Norris, and Russell. For me, top tier are these, in my mind, 100% either current or future world champions. Like, these are the world champions on the grid.
Basically, championship-worthy drivers.
Yes, and Piastri, like I said earlier, is, I think, getting there, but just not quite. Leclerc went up against Verstappen in 2022, and we saw how well he fought. If Leclerc is given the right car, he's there all day long.
He didn't look out of place. One of the biggest thing is he didn't look out of place, and he was doing that for the first time in his career, challenging for the title.
Exactly. So Leclerc is definitely there. Russell is absolutely there in my mind. And if you can't have Russell in this list, then I'm sorry, but you can't have Hamilton in this list because he's comprehensively been better than Hamilton all season.
Yeah.
And they're in the same car. You can only judge them against each other. So if you're going to say good luck, make all the excuses you want, you can only judge them against their teammate. And he's 19 points off of Hamilton, where he DNF'd or was
still
DSQ'd.
19.
Yes, yeah, but where he DNF'd or DSQ'd at the two races where Hamilton then won. So for him to only be 19, yes, at least in one of them, and you could argue for the other. He did win one of them, and Lewis inherited it. You could argue for the other all day. So to be only 19 points off is crazy. The head-to-heads, as you said, have been massively skewed in Russell's favour.
Yeah.
You basically, in my opinion, if you don't think Russell's top tier, then as far as I'm concerned, you must think that Hamilton has dropped off massively. Because that's the only way to say that Russell isn't top tier.
No,
simple.
There is another way. There is another way, and you are missing
sabotage.
The point.
Blah blah blah. Yeah. Well,
just wait for the same nonsense next season when it will be Ferrari.
Okay.
All I want to do is I want to just.
If you're a reasonable person, there's only one way to qualify it, right? If you're a reasonable human being, and
if your IQ crosses the double digits,
yes,
that's how
Norris, as far as I'm concerned, is top tier as well. We've seen him go toe-to-toe with Max. They crashed, obviously. But some of the performances from Norris over the last few years have been brilliant. I think a lot of people, first of all, the simple fact about Norris is, one, this is his first time consistently in a fast, let's say a winning car. McLaren have made a lot of mistakes. I went through it the other day, and actually Norris's mistakes are quite minuscule compared to McLaren's mistakes. Ooh. Yeah. So McLaren have made a nightmare of it. And like I said earlier, it's like George Russell and Hamilton for me. If you don't think Norris is in this list, then you certainly can't say that Piastri is anywhere near this list. Because again, you have to compare them to their teammates. So if Norris isn't top tier, then Piastri's nowhere near top tier. And if Russell's not top tier, then Hamilton's not top tier either anymore. Maybe
basically
Hamilton
Max
was, but isn't.
Max
Alonso and Leclerc are top tier on their own.
And
Leclerc, at the moment, everyone is praising Leclerc. They weren't last year or the year before, and they won't be next year when he's Hamilton's teammate once again, because that's the way it works.
Poor guy.
And
the
last thing I'll say
before he's going to face a lot.
Yes, and the last thing I'll say before we get into this, before you go through yours, is the bottom three in that list, Leclerc, Norris, and Russell, the ones who I'm saying I'm not saying they're bottom three, I'm just saying that don't have championships. the argument for all three of them all the time is they make too many mistakes. And you know what's interesting about that? That always goes away when a driver has a complete championship winning car for the season.
Yeah.
And you know why? Because when you're on the limit in a car that's not good enough for constantly, you're obviously going to make more mistakes. So Hamilton makes tons of mistakes when he's not in a dominant car. Verstappen made tons of mistakes when he was pushing a car over the limit. And Alonso's made mistakes when he's pushing it over the limit. But Alonso's also a weird case of, Alonso's made mistakes this year. A lot of mistakes this year, actually. So that's my top tier.
Yeah. Okay. I have the same list. I mean, I have the same 6 guys because it was a bit obvious. Let's make it more interesting. How would you rank these 6 right now?
Verstappen's top right now.
That's the obvious one next.
Yeah. I'd say Verstappen's top right now. I genuinely think as well, if I would say from 2018 onwards, because I know it'll piss off Verstappen fans as well here, but from 2016, 17, he did make a lot of mistakes, and I think,
Yeah. I mean, look,
he was a young driver.
He hit his racing puberty in Monaco GP 2018. It was after that race where he actually got his head together and started.
And even 2019, 2020, 21, there were still mistakes. But again, the same excuse applies for Leclerc and all those guys. When you're in a car that's not up there and you're pushing to try and win in a car that can't win, mistakes will happen. So Verstappen, I think, is top of that list. He's probably the best driver since Schumacher right now, in my opinion.
Yeah.
This one's going to upset people but this is more feels maybe for me. I rate Alonso ahead of Hamilton.
Yeah.
And you know why?
Me too.
It's because Hamilton's been brilliant and like Prost-like in terms of just playing out the years and defeating his teammates in a way where it's like, he'll just kind of eke it out over the season. He doesn't need to be on it every weekend. He'll beat you over the season. Hamilton's great that way. Alonso, when he's on it, and I think for me 2012 is seared in my mind. Alonso, when he has the right car, is spectacular. And I think in his peak, I think Alonso would have really pushed Verstappen to the end.
Yeah.
But Hamilton did as well. So, there you go. So, the thing is, I'd rate those that way, but I will say it's also tiny margins between them. It's not like I'm saying Alonso is way ahead of Hamilton, but I do think he is.
Biased racing podcast. So
sorry, yeah, Hamilton's shit. Alonso's way better. And then under that's where it gets hard because Leclerc, Norris, and Russell are similarly quite close to each other, I think. However, I would say it's Leclerc, Norris, and then Russell. And the reason I say that, and I hesitate saying that because I know that depending on the car, that could flip around very quickly. But if I just say in terms of driving ability, I think Leclerc is the guy who, if Leclerc had a title-winning car similar to Verstappen the whole way through the season, I would confidently say Leclerc will either win or basically be on the level of Verstappen the whole way through the season. He'll be there. Yeah. He'll be fighting. Norris, I think, would probably be
fully matured yet.
The other two, Norris and Russell, my problem is, if you said to me, he has an equal car to Verstappen, can he take that challenge? With Leclerc, the answer is just, yeah, definitely. With Norris and Russell, it's like, probably, but it depends on a lot of factors, which means they're kind of under there. And then when it comes to Norris and Russell, there's so little between them, I don't really know where to put them. But I do think in terms of out-and-out pace, Norris probably has the edge. In terms of thinking ability and kind of that kind of Alonso-esque kind of watching everything ability and strategizing, Russell has the edge. So that means
he has the edge on a lot of drivers on that front.
Yes, yeah. Russell definitely has that kind of Alonso-esque, he's watching everything ability that very few drivers have.
And he's willing to explore and throw the dice. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but yeah.
Whereas Norris is closer to Hamilton in terms of just kind of letting the team figure that out and focus on the driving and the pace. Yeah. Russell will think about strategy. Leclerc also won't do that. Like, Leclerc relies on the team quite heavily compared to drivers. Even Sainz is very much like Russell. They're thinking the whole time, which is why I have him so close to top tier. I think he's brilliant there. Yeah. But yeah, so I guess at a push, the way I'd have to look at it is Verstappen, Alonso, Hamilton, Leclerc, Norris, Russell. If I had to at a push. But there's very little between them, I think.
Right now, if you're ranking, that's how you put them, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so for me, it will be Verstappen at the top. I'll have Leclerc second.
Okay, interesting.
I'll explain it later.
Are you ranking that though over career or just over this season?
I'm ranking it 3
Like
to
right
4
now
seasons.
is what you're saying, or okay?
Last 3 to 4 seasons, if I have to do it.
Mm.
If I'm making a calculation on the basis of that, I'll put Leclerc at number 2.
If you're putting last 3 to 4 seasons, I'd probably put Leclerc above them as well. But anyway, that's too late now. Go. I was thinking over career, unfortunately.
Yeah, but that's anyway. I mean, if we start going for Lewis's over career, then what we are looking at is Lewis's peak years and comparing it with Leclerc's transformative years and also for so that would be a bit unfair.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So for me, I think it will be second will be Leclerc. Third, I'm putting Norris. Fourth is Alonso. Fifth is George. Sixth is Lewis. Right now, that's where I end up, and I'll tell you the reasoning.
If we're going on right now, before you do your reasons, I would agree on everything except Norris ahead of Alonso.
Yeah,
I think if you put Alonso in that McLaren right now, he's winning the championship.
That's true, because he'll basically the pit calls will be his. So yeah, that'd be a big difference.
And also Verstappen doesn't move over on Alonso in Austria, does he? Let's be honest here. He knows how that's ending.
Yeah, he does. He does. Yeah. And Alonso will be chirpy as well. Oh, I really hope Aston Martin is fast, competitive, title winning, whatever in 26, because Alonso in a top car. Oh boy.
Yeah, because look at 2023. You can't say that Alonso has dropped off since 2023. That was only a year ago.
Not at all.
Look how consistent he was in that car.
Yeah.
You know?
Just last year in Brazil, he was not supposed to be on the podium. He basically tricked Sergio Perez and got it done. So
he's incredible. Yeah. Even in Miami, watching the screens. But anyway, go on. Sorry, I interrupted.
So okay, now let me just go through the list. And I think the first point for Leclerc is something you also touched on, and I think I feel the same way. I think, look, in terms of talent in the current Formula 1 grid, the younger bunch, not taking Alonso and Lewis into consideration.
Yeah.
I think there's hardly anything to separate between Max and Charles.
Yeah.
The only thing is Max has a maniacal father who basically groomed him from, I think, 2 to 3 years of age, and
not sexually. That's only alleged. We should point that out. There's been no allegations.
Oh God! Just I didn't even think on those lines.
I'm watching Monster right now about the Menendez brothers, so don't listen to me. Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah. Makes sense then. In that case. Anyways, this was second. The reason why I have Lando in third is I think there are so many people that actually forget one very important fact about Lando, which is every weekend he's on the pace. Other than probably Monaco this season, you cannot pick a single weekend where Lando has not been on the pace of the car, where he's not extracting everything. Again, there are mistakes, there are errors, that's something different. Performance, every weekend he's there. And I think that makes a lot of difference. Then Alonso, because... And that's why I always said that if Alonso had somehow ended up at Red Bull, he would have challenged Max.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Because Alonso can figure out how to drive any car, no matter, like, where Albon struggled to adapt to that car, I have no doubt that Alonso would have adapted to it immediately.
The bigger thing is, during the race, he makes things happen, which is very, very, very rare quality in a lot of drivers.
He would have got in Verstappen's head massively as well.
Yeah.
He's probably one of the few people I think could get into Max's head.
Yeah.
Because Max is quite calm and cool, but probably
the only one. And Max, the thing is, Max also puts him on such a pedestal, and once those games start...
For younger viewers as well, we got to remember that Alonso literally was the guy who ended the run for Schumacher.
Michael Schumacher. Yeah.
So if you're saying Verstappen's the one since then this is the guy.
It was Alonso. Alonso was supposed to be Schumacher's successor. Why he didn't become one, he didn't have the ability to actually do something that Michael did a lot, which was building a team. He went to McLaren, imploded. I think a lot of it was his fault as well. He wasn't mature enough because
Yeah.
until 2006, he was under the tutelage of Flavio, where he was a
Yeah, yeah,
spoiled brat. He moved
yeah.
to Ron, who was, well, a piece of shit as well. But
Ron
I mean,
literally got fined $90 million for being a
yeah,
dickhead,
just for
right?
that.
So,
$95
yeah, yeah.
million, by the way. 5
95,
million
yeah.
for the fine, 95 for him being a dick. So,
Yeah.
anyways, that's why I have him. Plus, I think the biggest thing is, ever since the Adrian Newey news has come, Alonso has been the best of the rest in every race, and Aston Martin has not been the best of the rest in every race.
Mm-hmm.
It's entirely down to him, and outperforming a car is something he's still doing at this age. So,
Yeah.
just cannot discount him. Now,
No.
why I have George and Lewis at P5 and P6? I think one of the reasons is George has shown
By the
that he
way,
makes
if you're counting just the ground effect era, if you want to do it that way, like 2022 to now, I agree
Yeah.
with you. George is ahead of Lewis.
yeah,
Like, yeah.
precisely.
There's
And
only
even
half a season where Lewis was comfortably ahead of George, and that was from Monaco on last year. I feel like George wasn't comfortable in the car for basically half of that season.
Yeah.
So if the excuse is that Hamilton's not comfortable, sabotage, whatever, that does happen. Like there is times when drivers aren't comfortable. And for me,
Yeah.
the only time I've seen George not comfortable in the car was Monaco to the end of kind of the season last year. And otherwise, he's
yeah,
been...
there was a phase in between where George wasn't. Then there was a second major upgrade in Austin, and once again George fell off. Then in the last couple of races, he came back. It's
Well, like if you look
entirely
at
down to-
Australia before he DNF'd last year in
was P2.
2023, and he was brilliant. Like I remember literally watching that and going, if you don't think George is a future world champion, watch this
fucking
race.
idiot.
This is
Really,
this is
you're
proving
not-
it.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, why George is this low? I think one of the biggest things actually there are two things. First is his race pace, because there is still something he's leaving on the table. I feel that's one area where I think not only Lewis has on him, but I think in general his contemporaries do. I think Lando is brilliant when it comes to race management. That's one area where he has to work on. Second is the unnecessary errors.
Yeah.
Again, it's not a lot, but they are there.
Yeah.
The recent one was in Monza, where he just overshot the T1 at the start and ended up behind Lewis. Ideally, he should have been in front of Lewis and probably made a better race for himself.
Yep.
He didn't.
Yep.
So these are the things which right now they won't count. But when you are in the title fight where every single point counts, you're going to come back to these very moments and you'll think, okay, there are things which he's leaving on the table.
I think here is perfect example for me is looking at that Singapore race, right? With Norris in that car, I wasn't sure he was going to win until the end, right? Because there was a couple of little errors and he was pushing a bit and so on, right? Those mistakes are still kind of inherent to the point where it's not like they're all the time. I'm not saying he makes wild mistakes, but to be honest, it was the same with Verstappen for me up until a point where Verstappen would make some little kind of errors that could throw things away over his years. Where in 2021, there was still kind of a hangover from that where I was watching Verstappen and at points I was like, is he going to get this to the end? Like anything could happen here.
Two reasons, it's not only Verstappen being there, it's also because we had the hangover of 2017, 2018 championship campaigns where
Yeah, I think that probably didn't help either. Yeah.
because there had been this thought process that
Someone's
there
going to
will
beat
come
Lewis
a moment
where Lewis is going to lose. Like, and
where Mercedes is going to find that something extra and Lewis will just pull away. He did that in 17, in 18. Actually, Mercedes did that in 2021, much later, and probably too late for that.
But my point is, like, after 2021, the Verstappen that we got in 2022, within 2 or 3 races, for me, it was as soon as Verstappen got the lead, unless the car blew up, I just knew he was bringing it home. There was there's never a moment where you think, right, Verstappen's in the lead, he's comfortably in the lead. There's no point where you think he's going to make a mistake. You're like, a mistake's not going to happen here. You're going to need something to happen. Leclerc, after 2022 for me as well, kind of became that driver where I was like, he's going to bring it home. I think 2022, The thing is, 2022 and before that, whenever he was pushing for the win, Leclerc, he was pushing for it in a car that was nowhere near the fastest or needed to be right on the edge to be the fastest. So mistakes happened, he got in his own head. And since then, I feel like kind of for Verstappen as well, it's kind of that change has happened where Leclerc doesn't really make those mistakes anymore. He's just kind of, if the car is there, he's on it, you know he's going to bring it home. Norris and Russell, I think the thing that people forget is Verstappen and Leclerc have had the advantage of being in a team that over the entirety of their careers has always been in a position at least a couple of times a year to win a race. Right? Norris and Russell have essentially never been in that situation, or for most of their career weren't in that situation. Yeah. Like Russell for 3 years, half of his career was in a Williams. He wasn't fighting at the front. And then for half of his career has been in a very inconsistent car that has very occasionally been up for the win. And I think Russell this season hasn't made those mistakes, and I think he's probably getting closer. And Norris, over the last few races, has been more and more of that driver. So I think that's what people forget is Norris and Russell are the two drivers on that list who haven't consistently been in a car that could win during a season. So they haven't had that pressure test in the same way the other guys have. And that might sound like an excuse to people, but it's just a fact. Look at those drivers earlier in their careers when they were pressure tested. They made those mistakes. So... That's Lewis as well. I mean, you know, Lewis made plenty of mistakes when he wasn't in the right car.
People gloss over the fact that 2007 was brilliant from him. 2008
was a lot of mistakes.
2008 was not a championship-worthy campaign from either him or Felipe Massa. There were times when it was poor from both of them. And that's something people don't remember because, look, half of them have not even seen that season.
If Alonso had continued on into that season, I think he probably would have taken the championship.
Alonso would have won in 2007 as well if he had not imploded, because he ended the season level on points. And this is despite the fact that I think 6 or 7 races from the end, he had zero support from McLaren.
Yeah.
And even then he ended up there. So He is the victim of his own mistakes. That's the biggest takeaway from everything. Anyways, just finally on Lewis, he's P6. The reason is, I think there's something that people don't understand, and they haven't seen this pattern from Lewis throughout his career. And that pattern is, he has great years, and continuously he'll rattle through weekends where everything works. Then all of a sudden a phase will come when things won't. And that's how his season goes. There'll be 3 to 4 race weekends where he will be off for some reason or the other. And then he'll come back and he'll be brilliant. But the thing is, when there are consistent drivers in the same car at the same time, they will expose this thing. Nico Rosberg kind of did it during that stint. Button used to do a lot because Button was brilliant in terms of race pace. So he had a bit of an advantage on that front. And I think what we are seeing right now is something similar on that front. Lewis hasn't lost a lot of it. This is the first time in his career I've actually heard him say that the cars are not to his style, because he was someone who quite pompously used to say that it doesn't matter what the car characteristics is. If it is fast, I'll be able to drive it.
Yeah.
So it's interesting and actually funny to see him actually, make these statements. So for now, I'll say P6. But again, as soon as he gets the fastest car under him, and there's a title or a race win in sight, you'll see him just rise up and again perform at a very high level, just like he did in Silverstone, in Spa. Yeah. But you need that. You need that carrot in front of him to actually extract the best. Otherwise,
whereas Russell doesn't need that because he's never had the best car, so it's always just he's just on it. I think the thing is, though, for me, it feels like I think because it's like 3 seasons now of the two of them together. If we were just basing it on 2022 to now, it seems to me like Russell's only fixing mistakes and getting better and slowly kind of, to a point where I think Russell and Leclerc versus Norris in a title championship would be insane. And we may see it next year, who knows. But I feel like it's just kind of Hamilton's now having those kind of Vettel-esque years where I feel like it's kind of starting to drop. whereas Russell's only getting better. The difference is I don't think it's as sudden a drop off, but then Hamilton hasn't driven for Ferrari yet, and we know Ferrari crushes the hopes and dreams of every driver. So we'll see what happens next year, I suppose, and fans. Yeah.
Never forget that.
Yeah.
I guess we're done with the list.
Yeah.
By the way, I had a question to ask you. Now, since next season there will be 5 rookies, if I'm not wrong. There's Behrman, Antonelli, Lawson. Should we consider Lawson a rookie? Newcomer, let's say he'll be a newcomer because he'll have 5 plus 6, so 11 races. That's a
11
lot.
races, half a season nearly.
Half a season, right?
Yeah.
So that's 3. There's Jack Doohan, right? Jack Doohan and Franco Colapinto. Oh fuck! Will Colapinto be on the grid?
I genuinely, I don't think so, but I think Sauber should be giving him a seat. But you know what the other thing is?
It's him and Bortoleto. It could be either of them or Bottas.
I kind of, if I'm honest, I don't really think he should go to the Sauber. But anyway, I think that could be a career-ending move because the problem is if you're in a car that's really, really, really shit. The only thing actually is, if Colapinto goes into that team, even if the car is really shit, if he's performing like up against Hulkenberg impressively, that's probably a good enough benchmark to go, okay, like this kid is something, you know, like so.
Yeah.
Maybe it doesn't matter as much next year.
We'll know this by the end of the season, by the way. There are 6 more races.
Yeah.
Alongside Alex Albon, a proven benchmark. If Colapinto shows that he can, if somehow he beats Albon consistently, who knows?
It's kind of if he continues even the way he is, it's a win-win because even if he doesn't beat Albon, but he consistently is where he is right now, kind of
but
being
imagine
alongside
if he beats Albon, then what? Then James Walsh has a lot of thinking to do because
James Walsh is then in a very good situation, right, where he's got 3 brilliant drivers for 2 seats.
I'd say he's in a bad situation because he has a driver who will be in very high demand, and then there are 2 drivers who he has paid very highly. And he cannot bench this young upcoming superstar.
Yeah.
That's the situation which he will be in. Especially considering Williams will be on a very, very upward mobile trajectory. So they would actually like to have a
I think the only upside for Vowles is that I think if he can keep him on side over the whole of 2025, it doesn't really matter because I still have a feeling that Sainz may not be there for 2026, and I think it's a big insurance policy. You know,
could be.
I think the way the grid is moving around.
Yeah, that's fair.
The thing is, I know a lot of the drivers that have moved now or things like that have contracts just for 2026, but I think there's going to be a lot of like. I don't see the Leclerc and Hamilton situation being all happy days at Ferrari. Let's put it that way. I think
it's
Antonelli
not going to be between the drivers. It will be between the... I think at least the fans would keep their mouth shut for 2025. Because they are going into that season expecting Lewis to lose. They're going with that mindset.
Here's the thing that I find funny if we're talking about like fan attitudes. People keep saying... When I talk about Russell being great, right? They keep saying, just wait for him to be shown up by Antonelli next year. And my question on that is, so if he's shown up by Antonelli and Leclerc shows up Hamilton, what does that then prove?
And George has already shown up Lewis, so
that then means that Antonelli is worse, or Antonelli is better than not only George, but also Hamilton.
With Lewis. Yeah.
So the point that they were making, I was like, I don't think you're thinking this out because all that will prove is that Antonelli is better than Hamilton. It's not going to prove that. It's not going to prove that George is worse than Hamilton because if Antonelli beats George, that just proves that Antonelli is better than both. That doesn't prove anything else. Like unless Antonelli goes in to Mercedes and destroys George. And alongside this, Hamilton is destroying Leclerc. Unless Hamilton destroys Leclerc in that situation, it only proves one thing. If Hamilton destroys Leclerc, maybe Hamilton what it proves
Leclerc, I mean, a lot of people will be surprised.
Yeah. It also,
including him.
Yeah, and
That's also,
I think people will quickly wake up from that dream, look at the actual standings, and go, "Oh, well, that was an interesting 6 hours sleep,"
yeah.
because it's not going to happen. I'm just
I
calling it here.
seriously
It's
doubt it.
not
Yeah.
going to happen.
If that happens, I'll actually have to question if I know anything about the sport. If
So
that
will
happens.
I, because if he's not comprehensively beating George, but he's comprehensively beating Leclerc, then the only real argument I have for that is
How good is George?
George must be brilliant. Like,
Yeah.
George must be one of the best drivers we've ever seen in the sport, if
Yeah.
that's the case. Because
Oh God.
where
And
do you
yeah,
think the rookies are going to pan out then for next year? Is this what we're talking about?
That was the next point. I'm not sure what happens with Colapinto. I think Williams is not going to let him out on a loan as well, cause if they are letting him out on a loan to Sauber, which is becoming Audi,
Well, Sauber
and they
doesn't
can pay
seem to
him
want
a
to
fuck
take a
ton of
loan
money.
is the problem. Sauber doesn't seem
That's
to
also
want to
maybe.
take a loan. So
Ideally, for Sauber, what do you think is the best choice for them for 2025?
for 2025, I think at this point they're going to probably keep Bottas. Do I think that's
what,
the best
what
choice?
do you
No.
think is the best choice? What should they do?
Colapinto, if they want the best available option right now, it's Colapinto. That is it.
Okay.
That is the best choice.
And how do you think Colapinto compares to Bortoleto, which we cannot really? I mean, because Bortoleto is winning the Formula 2 championship as a rookie.
Sure,
The
but
only
Mick
driver to
Schumacher
have
won
done
the
that
Formula 2
is
championship.
George and Leclerc.
As a rookie, yeah, that's true. And it's not like it's a bad group of drivers either, is it?
Yeah.
The problem with Formula 2 right now as well, though, is because it's the new regulations, there's drivers that I would think would be doing better that aren't.
Yeah.
Like Colapinto, I believe, is only one place behind Antonelli in the standings, right?
Oh,
I think he's seventh. Maybe he's not actually
he was
after moving.
sixth.
But
He
yeah.
was sixth when he moved to Formula 1. So
So I think
he
he's
had a
ahead
race
of
win
Antonelli
under
or
his
something.
belt.
Yeah.
He had a race win under his belt.
So like then you look, Behrman's down in
He
P14. So you look where Prema is. So the problem is
Yeah.
basically it's hard to tell how impressive that is because of how weird some of the order is. Because I think
True.
if this was the previous era, do I think that Kimi and Behrman would be that low in the order? Probably not. And from what we've
Behrman
seen
was
from
third last season,
Colapinto,
I think. Third or fourth.
yeah, and from what we've seen from Colapinto, if everything was kind of just actually
Yeah.
spec series, would he be up there? So I don't know. It's really hard to tell. But one thing's for certain, like Bortoleto is a very, very good driver. But until you get them in F1, I mean, F1 seems... Hopefully this F2 reg change is helping, but it seemed like the jump from F2 to F1 kind of meant nothing over the last few seasons. It was kind of like just you'd have drivers that would jump from F2 to F1 and were brilliant, and ones that were
Yeah.
brilliant in F2
I think all
that
of
came
them,
across them.
Lawson, Colapinto, and Behrman, they've made it look very easy.
And
Anyways,
Lawson
just
wasn't
do
that
one thing.
impressive in F2, right? If I
Lawson
remember correctly.
was fourth in. Lawson was third in the championship, I think.
But I think Sargeant was quite close to Lawson. in
Sargent
the
was
championship.
fourth.
Yeah.
Jack Toohan was fifth. So
And
that
then
was the order.
look at how that converted when you go to F1 then. You know, Lawson's kind of potentially going to Red Bull and Sargent's
Dude,
out of a seat.
Logan almost beat Oscar Piastri to Formula 3 championship. So
This is my point. So it's like the junior series. I think hopefully these changes will make
no,
it...
they were in the same team, same car, everything same. And I don't know. Logan is an interesting case, and I think how he does in IndyCar is going to show a lot. But it's maybe he might. I think it happened with John Eric Verne as well, where he just the pressure got too much for him, and then as soon as he left Formula 1, he flourished in Formula E, became a double world champion. So maybe IndyCar is the way for him. Who knows?
Yeah, it's hard to say.
In terms of potential, by the way, these 5 rookies, how would you rank them?
In terms of potential, I think Antonelli is probably at the top in terms of just pace.
Yeah, we have to.
You know, and I think like Verstappen, I think if he has that pace, as you kept saying earlier as well, like you can remove those mistakes, you know, but the pace will be there. And the pace is amazing. Like if we just look at the pace there. So I think that's impressive. Behrman is like a capable pair of hands. I'm just not sure how out and out fast he is compared to those drivers is the problem.
Yeah. I
That's the
used to
issue.
rate him very highly, but Antonelli in his first season is quicker than Behrman.
Yeah, and
Definitively.
he was very quick into the barrier in Imola as well, or in no
Yeah.
in Monza. Sorry.
Yeah.
Colapinto, I probably wouldn't have been sure from F2, but I
No one
mean,
fucking knows. He's the wild
yeah,
card, isn't he?
I genuinely, if I had to rate him out of those right now, I'm probably saying like I would put Colapinto ahead of Lawson right now
I
because
would too. I would too.
I think in terms of if we just look at being dropped into the car and the way he's gone about it and that move in Singapore off the line, that like killer instinct to just throw it down, like
Yeah.
that's kind of the things we praise Piastri for, right? Just that kind of jumping down the line. Great drivers just make those moves without thinking
Yeah.
about it, and
And it comes naturally to them.
and I think if we're going on that, like if we're still calling Lawson a kind of on this kind of route going into the next season, I'd probably put Lawson ahead of Behrman because I think in terms of out and out pace, unfortunately, I think they're kind of in the same line. And then you've got Lawson and Behrman where I think both of them will kind of comfortably bring the car home. But I think Lawson's probably slightly quicker. I'm probably biased on that because I watched a few races of Super Formula and Lawson was really impressive in a series that we know is quite difficult. So who else is there then? So I'm going
Jack
Antonelli.
Doohan is the one left.
He's at the bottom. I don't know how I feel about him, but I'm
Yeah.
not hugely impressed, and it's kind of maybe he'll come out of the works and be brilliant, maybe.
Yeah.
But it's been quite a while where you want to know the reason why is because Alpine had very easy decisions to make in terms of they could have brought him up at any point, and I feel like when you're kind of benchmarking him, and it's like he, compared to. I've already said that I don't think Gasly and Ocon are up there. So when you've got Doohan kind of lounging about and not being brought up when those are your decisions, for me it's like, okay, well, until I see him in an F1 car, I don't think I'm not going to be that impressed. That said, because I have him so low in my expectations, maybe next year I'll be like, this guy's fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
But for right now, bottom
Yeah.
of that list.
Yeah. I think might be Antonelli, Behrman, Colapinto, Lawson, and Doohan.
Okay.
I won't be surprised if Doohan starts beating Gasly as well.
Yeah.
Because he's surprised me a
Gasly's
lot
terrible.
in terms of. Yeah, that. I think Gasly's better than Albon.
Look, Ocon and Gasly are two of the worst drivers on the grid, and I think it's just time you admit this.
Yeah, both are race winners. What the fuck has Albon done?
You've ruined my team, the two of you. That's the problem. It's not the team, it's the drivers.
Yeah, they did that. They did that.
Oh god.
Anyone but the real issue. That's what Alpine focuses on.
Alpine could have had Piastri and Fernando Alonso as their lineup. How terrible is that?
We should thank our stars that they didn't. Because just imagine. But yeah.
Piastri would have been over. No one would have been hyping Piastri probably. That's how funny it is.
Yeah. Who knows? I mean, they would have basically been done. Alonso would have retired by now. And
Ricardo would have been in a potentially title-winning car.
Oh, God.
No, he wouldn't. No, he wouldn't, because he wouldn't have made it past 2023.
Ricardo was in McLaren. Yeah, he would. Maybe not.
His contract ended at the end of 2023, so I don't think if it had continued on, they wouldn't.
It was supposed to end in 24, right?
Yeah, I think so. But I don't. Yeah. I think it was a 3+1. It was a really long contract, right?
It was a 3-year contract which ended in the second year. He left in 2022, so in 2023 at least would have had a fast car.
Yeah, but he probably wouldn't have been carried over to this season. More than likely.
100%. That was never going to happen.
Yeah.
Anyways, final topic. I don't know. The whole thing came out again. The Abu Dhabi 2021. That's why I actually wanted to talk about it today.
Okay.
Gunther Steiner, he wrote another book, or probably the.
If Charlie Whiting was there, Hamilton would have been an 8 champion. Yeah.
What's your take?
It's funny how the Hamilton group love to use the "if" word in that context, but they hate using it when it comes to Lando. Yeah. What
Go
do I
for it.
think?
Yeah.
No, because honestly, if Charlie Whiting had have been the FIA director, or like what you call it, race director at that
Race
point,
director.
I would say Verstappen probably would have won the championship before Abu Dhabi, to be honest, or would have gone into Abu Dhabi 7 or 8 points ahead, which would have meant that, because I think he would have given a much harsher penalty in Silverstone, probably, which would
Yeah.
have made it difficult for Hamilton to catch up.
It should have been either a stop go penalty or probably something on those lines. A 10-second
Yes.
penalty is an absolute joke.
Yeah, it
that
would
they
have been a
had.
much harsher. It probably would have been a drive-through for that,
Yeah.
realistically, under Charlie. I'm sure people will love that. I'm trying. There's a couple of other incidents as well where,
But ideal,
like,
yeah,
he would have been harsher, I think, in Jeddah. But I think in Jeddah,
for the impeding
I think in
incident.
Jeddah, Hamilton probably would have got a penalty as well,
Impeding.
because when Mercedes
Pushed
were
Max
told,
off.
well, no, not even that. Just Mercedes were told that Max was going to give the position up. They didn't
Yeah.
pass that on to Lewis quick enough. Lewis could clearly see that
Max
Verstappen was
ceding
slowing down.
position.
Well, he was slowing down, so it could have been a car issue. And he didn't want to pull out and give DRS, so he crashed into the back of him. So, in my opinion, both of them would have got penalties there, which would have made an interesting end to the race. I'm sure there's a couple of other... In Bahrain at the start of the season, Max probably... That would have ended differently because Hamilton went off at the track limits repeatedly. And
No,
then
but
it
that's
was
fine,
only
right?
at the
It was only
only
when
at the
you
overtake. It was only at the overtake. That wouldn't have happened, so I don't think Hamilton would have been anywhere near him anyway, because he was making up a lot of time going off the track there, which Charlie, I think, would have clamped down on quicker. There's a variety of things that I think wouldn't have
Abu
happened.
Dhabi, lap 1.
Yes, Hamilton would have got a 10-second or been told to see the position.
Yeah.
Very quickly.
If he was told to cede the position, do you think it's easy to overtake around Abu
No,
Dhabi?
especially when the tire wear comes in, because and people forget as well that in those days, Verstappen only needed to defend for 3 or 4 laps, which he
And
would
that's
have, and then the thing. So realistically, the end of Abu Dhabi wouldn't have happened, but I think there's 3 or 4 cases where you could say it would have been over before then under Charlie anyway. Realistically. There's probably other situations as well, but yeah.
Okay, now a slightly more controversial thing. Do you think the era under Charlie Whiting, it gets maybe hyped a bit too much and being treated like the golden period of the FIA or Formula One?
Yes, in one way, because I think there were mistakes under Charlie as well. Like, it wasn't perfect under Charlie.
Plenty.
Yes,
Plenty.
I think
Scandals. The
Yeah,
2008, he hid the Crashgate scandal.
Yep,
He was one of the people who knew about it.
him
The
and Mosley and
2019
Bernie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Mosley
obviously
was too
Flavio.
busy in a dungeon at the time, so he wasn't paying attention. And Bernie was too busy trying to see out over the dashboard of his car, so he
So,
didn't
yeah,
know what was going on. Yeah, yeah.
2016 Mexican Grand Prix, 2019 Canadian Grand Prix, and there's a long list.
The thing is,
Charlie has been shouted at by the driver, was shouted at by the drivers, a lot of them, and Charlie had been at the job for 2 to 3 decades.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest, and I think one of the biggest things that I feel, Michael
it's the
Massey
comparison, though, isn't it?
yeah.
It's the messiness of the comparison, because basically the FIA didn't prepare for when Charlie went, which meant that while Charlie made mistakes, there was a decent amount of consistency over those years. We kind of knew what the penalties would be when things happened. We kind of knew what the rules
He
of
had the
engagement
authority
were.
as well. If he
Yeah.
said something, it was listened to.
And the drivers kind of knew what the rules of engagement were under him. I think the problem is, since he's gone, there is no real consistency on rules of engagement. It swings violently week to week constantly. And the FIA didn't put anything in to fix that. So I think the problem is, it's been worse in
FIA
terms of
is a
consistency.
corrupt and inefficient organization. That's the thing.
Yeah,
I think-
they're French, aren't they? So
I mean, I don't know. There's MBS at the top, so I don't
No,
know
but
how
they're
French they
French.
are.
I think. Look, that's just
Look, you
the
can't even
French
abuse now for
are
the FIA.
inconsistent,
So
cheese-eating surrender monkeys.
okay,
That's
we won't cut that out.
no, it's staying in.
Yeah. I think for me the biggest thing is I think Michael Masi has been treated as entirely a scapegoat in the entire scheme of things.
Yeah.
Here was a race director. First of all, the job that he had, it was only made tougher on so many levels. First of all, you had a championship battle. Then, at that very moment, the whole point of entertainment and the show was very high. People
Yeah.
don't remember right now, but that time, that quotient was a lot. Liberty and FOM was very, very much in the ears of the FIA that we needed more stoppages. This was one of the key things. Red flags, safety cars, and stuff like that. A lot of those were
Here's a
introduced.
question for you because I don't. Do you think Charlie would have succumbed to that?
Yeah,
That's where I think the
of
difference is.
course. Yeah,
You think so?
because if Jean Todt could succumb to it, then what the fuck is Charlie
Yeah,
going to do?
true. Yeah.
Right?
Okay, it's a fair
And at
point.
the end
Yeah.
of the day, everyone wants more money.
Also,
and
I
if
do
there
love
is-
the people who blame MBS for Abu Dhabi, not realizing that John Todd was what's the
Look,
president.
fans are dumb. Fans are dumb. There's no point to even.
That's a great thing to all the fans listening. Thanks a lot there, Sean. We've just lost all our subscribers. You people watching, you're all morons.
I mean, you'll just clip that out at the start.
No,
At the start of the video.
Put it at the start. Yeah, maybe.
Fans
That's a
are
good idea.
dumb.
Yeah.
What the fuck? What am I watching then? Anyways, so when it comes to Michael Masi, and even on the last lap, there's something people forget. In front of millions of people, here was someone who was supposed to listen to multiple people while trying to figure out how to get the car in certain place. Should he get the safety car or not? And also he also, before the race weekend, even in Toto Wolff, I think like an idiot, he revealed that he had a meeting with Michael Masi regarding what could happen during the race weekend and stuff like that, which
cannot
ideally is
finish
unethical.
under
It should not
yellows.
be done. Yeah, that's actually influencing one of the key referees. And then finally, the biggest thing, everyone forgets how much backlash FIA got for what happened at Spa that season, where they had the end of the race and the safety car and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
he could not afford a race ending under
Wow,
safety
you
car.
say end of the race.
Yeah.
Race. Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah. Fine. Yeah. You're taking it too far.
There wasn't end of the race under safety car. There was just a race under safety car.
Yeah. Precisely.
There was no race.
You got the point. Everyone got the
was a
point.
qualifying
Race was
session.
not the focus.
Yes.
Race was not the focus. So, anyways, and even when all of this is there, the man was under so much pressure, and he did what he thought was the right thing, and
Yeah.
he was frustrated when he actually said to Toto. By the way, it is still an iconic line. We went racing.
Yeah.
It was him being so frustrated by so many people knackering him when he's trying to do his job. And at the end, what's the consequence? He's basically turned into a scapegoat.
Even just
and
look,
he's blamed.
The team radio was removed after that season for obvious reason because it's
Yeah.
ridiculous to have that much pressure on the race directors. They just don't do it anymore because they know how.
Yeah.
That's like that would. I don't think Charlie would have allowed that.
That should have been the admittance of guilt that we went wrong.
Yeah.
But
There's Michael Masi shouldn't have been fired for that. He made mistakes, but so did everybody else. Like
Yeah.
the argument should have been right. The teams, the FIA, and Masi, everybody, Liberty Media as well. They all pushed this to boiling point. They went too far, and here's
Yeah.
what we're changing going forward. But the fans will just blame two people depending on who it's on. They'll either blame Toto Wolff if you're a Verstappen fan for his part in it, or if you're a Hamilton fan, you blame the FIA and for some reason Red Bull. So
Jonathan.
the
Levy.
fact is there's blame to go around, and
Yeah.
like to
And
put
when
it
that
in,
happens, you know what the reality is. So
it was a money situation, simple as like it was simply a money situation, and
yeah.
like at the end of the day, to put it in racing terms, because nobody was predominantly at fault, it was simply a racing incident. That's the only way
Precisely.
you can account for it, you know?
And look, while I understand the whole thing about Abu Dhabi 2021 being it had bad optics, of course, but that was not the first bad move that the race director made under extreme pressure from all quarters.
Yeah.
He was put in an impossible situation where he made a mistake, and
There was no winning there. Like,
yeah,
if he had finished that under yellows, it would have just been the opposite team going crazy.
yeah.
It would have been Verstappen fans being like, look at this, they
If he
manipulated
restarted
this.
the race one lap prior, even then it will be the same nonsense, because you can't make fans happy. That's the entire
Yeah.
moral of the story.
It's
As
the
I
same
said,
same
fans are
fans as well
stupid.
it's same fans as well that will talk about the fact that, like Verstappen going off track and keeping the position, but then it's absolutely fine when Lewis does it in Abu Dhabi. So like for me, it's consistency I want all the time. I don't really mind what the rules are as long as they're held up consistently, because as soon as you have them inconsistent, then it's not a fair championship. It's as simple as that.
It screws things up, and that's bad optics. So don't do that. That's the whole point.
Don't do that. But yeah, I found it. One last thing I'll say on this, I do find it quite funny constantly as well. There's people bashing the FIA and not realizing that the FIA and FOM are different things and that they hate each other.
That's also I've seen.
Yeah, just this constant bashing of certain things that you're like, no, the teams are pushing for this. Like people saying, the FIA is in bed with McLaren and they're cheating. It's like, no, that doesn't make any sense. Like the FIA gains nothing by McLaren winning. The FIA still gets paid the same amount of money. They don't care who wins.
By the way, the FIA is non-profit. So
yes, but
that's
the
also
FIA
the
get
biggest anomaly in the world.
They get a specific amount of money from FOM each year for leasing out the championship to them. And people seem to not understand. They're like, the FIA is causing this. You're like, no. The only ones who, whenever, it's like any crime, you have to look for motive. Yeah. And when you look at anything, if you want to say something is corrupt, then it's the teams and FOM, because they are the ones with something to gain. The FIA have nothing to, and I kind of
corrupt. It's
as
just,
much as I don't
it's just
like,
bad.
It's incompetent.
It's a badly run organization.
The FIA
That's
is
what it
at worst incompetent. That's what they are. They're not.
At
it's not so much
actually,
corruption.
That's the best.
I don't know if it's corruption as much as it's just incompetence a lot of the time. And I do kind of, as much as I don't like MBS as a person, if I'm honest, there is one thing I do agree with him on that he said this week, which is kind of, it doesn't matter what we do, we're always rubbish or something like that, or what he was saying.
Yeah.
Where basically, I kind of agree with him there, because it's always been that way. The FIA are kind of just blamed for everything that goes wrong and not given any credit for anything that goes right, and that is kind of a, because people just assume when something goes wrong it's the FIA's fault. They don't seem to understand the dynamic.
That's part of the job. There's
and
a
I don't
reason
like
why
FIA
was one of the more invisible organizations or governing bodies when John Todd was at the helm. Other than 2019, when there was the whole Ferrari power unit thing. Yeah. Other than that,
the last team that actually
every
cheated.
other thing was handled brilliantly by Sean. So that's
John
part
Todd,
of the job.
The people blaming MBS as well for again, I don't like MBS. I'm not trying to defend him here, but it is just, you can't blame him for Abu Dhabi, because I think he was in charge of that specific Grand Prix, but all of the
No, he wasn't. I remember his starting date was, I think it was 1st
17th or
December
16th or something.
Yeah,
it was after
whatever
that, anyway.
it was afterwards,
but
it was a bit like, here's the entire mess.
I think he was
Todd.
like but I think he wasn't the president, but I think he was like the FIA delegate in charge of that race or something like that.
Yeah.
But the point is, all the things that went wrong were decisions made by FOM and John Todd leading up to that. So it wasn't, you can't blame any of that on him. Which, as much as I would love to blame it on him, because I think he's a moron, but just logically speaking, you can't. It doesn't make any sense. So,
And on that bombshell, I think, Okay, one word. Do you think the whole 80-20-21 is blown up too much?
I can't believe we're still talking about it. I only ever bring it up just to wind up fans, so having a serious conversation about it is ridiculous. And realistically, if you're going to give, if you wanted to change the results of 80-21, then in my mind you also have to change the results of 2008, because in both cases a champion lost out.
That's a far more legit case, actually.
Yeah, and the simple thing is, you have to delete the entire session. That's the only way to do it, isn't it? So, realistically, if
the
you're going to delete
the race gets cancelled.
In which
That's what
case,
happens.
Massa wins.
Yeah.
So that's that, mathematics.
Lewis is a 6-time world champion in that case, huh?
Yeah, and if you swap it around, Lewis still ends up a 7-time world champion, even if you decided to just, there's like, simple as that,
Yeah.
But in the other cases, you can't just cancel one lap. You have to cancel the entire race in both cases. So, yeah, in both cases, he's a 6-time world champion because Hamilton...
That's what I was about to
Verstappen
say.
wins on countback, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, to say, just cancel...
He had more race wins.
What was it? It was like, just reinstate lap 57. It's like, that, you can't do that. That's ridiculous. Like, that's such... That you can't just pick the thing where it's like, okay, how can I work it out so that Hamilton wins the champion? Perfect. Well, it's like, no. In both cases, you cancel the race.
Oh,
that's the only
void lap
option.
58, by the way.
But
that was
ridiculous.
the hashtag, right?
Ridiculous, yeah.
Oh, God. Anyways, on that bombshell, time to end this one.
Yeah.
We've got actually something quite interesting for next week as well. For now, I hope you guys enjoyed. As usual, Jason's list sucked. I've tried to make as many changes as possible to make it better.
Yeah.
More.
We're looking for co-hosts,
more
by the
palatable.
way. If you,
yeah.
we're looking for new co-hosts. Casual needs to go.
I need a break. How much?
How much? A permanent break.
Oh God.
I'm sending you on permanent vacation.
I might.
You're like the Max Mosley of this, you're like the. I've forgotten
Max
his name.
Mosley
now.
would have been a very, very, very inappropriate one.
I can't even remember his name now. Who was the FIA director we were just talking about a second ago?
Michael Massey.
You are the Michael Massey of this podcast.
Yeah, but I didn't look just like he made F1 great. I'm the one who makes the podcast great. So yeah.
And on that uninformative and incorrect bombshell, it's time to end. Right. Subscribe.
Thank you. Thanks for watching. Drop a like, drop a comment. Tell us how poor Jason's list is. And bye-bye.
I'd like to just point out I never said thanks for watching. Bye.